And we start with big news making headlines over the weekend. There was a terrorist attack in Germany. Let me find the browser audio here. That's it. Unmute that. Yeah, so quick thing here from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters. Turns out the terrorist was an Afghan asylum seeker. Going hard with the video introductions these days. Oh, they've got a new issue of Islander.
Right, so yesterday in Germany, in Munich, there was a very tragic event with an Afghan who literally drove a Mini Cooper in a demonstration of people. And
they couldn't have picked another vehicle.
The same ridiculous reaction by the mainstream media and by people, and by leftists especially. But before we say more about that, we have merch to shill. We have here wonderful Islander t-shirts, and is it now time for people to make some? Is it time for people to make some orders?
I mean, yes, but that's every day.
Exactly. So
yes,
it's order day.
Ideally, they would like people making orders every day.
We have good news that will soon arrive.
Buy some merch,
so
chat.
Here, let's talk about some bad news, and let's bear the context in mind. So in the last 12 months, we know at least 5 major terrorist attacks and terrorist acts in Germany. So we had Michael Sturzenberger, who was attacked by an Islamist.
5 terror attacks in the past 12 months. 3 of them committed by Afghans, 1 by a Syrian, and 1 by a Saudi Arabian national.
We had the Solingen stabbings at the Diversity Festival. We had the terrorist incident in Magdeburg.
Is that the one with the car that drove?
The one with the car, and an Islamist drove the Saudi Arabian.
Yeah, stabbist and car attacks here.
Car into the crowd. Then we had the stabbings in Aschaffenburg, where another Islamist killed an old man, a 42-year-old man, and also he stabbed a baby to death, the year-old. And yesterday we had this really tragic event where a person, I think he was an Afghan who literally drove a Mini Cooper in a demonstration, which was a leftist demonstration, if you believe, by a group called Verdi Im WR, which I'll tell you in a bit what's happened. So whenever we see attacks like these, we see a particular pattern. I have 5 stages there. You can make some amendments.
Let's read Stelios's tweet here on screen. Another stabbing attack in Aschaffenburg in Germany with 2 victims, including 1 child. Suspect of Afghan origin. Let's see if the following pattern would apply in this case. Stage 1, criminal act, I would call that a terrorist attack, is committed. Stage 2, politicians express their sympathies to the families of the victims. Stage 3, the terrorist attack is portrayed as an isolated incident committed by an individual with mental health problems. Stage 4, mainstream media, so-called, and politicians will scaremonger about the rise of the far right. Stage 5, forget and move on. Yeah, they're trying, aren't they? They're trying this time. Time will tell whether or not they succeed.
So, for instance,
we may have a spanner being thrown into the works thanks to the American Vice President. We'll get to that in a moment.
Politicians express their sympathies to the families of the victims. Stage 3, the crime is portrayed as an isolated incident committed by an individual with mental health problems. Stage 4, mainstream media and politicians will scaremonger about the far right, and then they forget and then move on.
I think the only amendment I'd make is stage 1 is to say that it definitely wasn't a terrorist attack. They know nothing about the incident, but they know it's not terrorist related.
Exactly. Yes.
Except it was, and we all know it was. You know, it's no, but this is what happens. This is what happens, Larry.
Is constant speculation about the motives.
Yeah.
He says that we can't establish what the motive might have been.
But we know it wasn't terrorism.
Al-Qaeda, Hamburg.
Yeah.
But is there a link to the religion of peace?
Yes.
Just yelling on our Akbar.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just so happened to be yelling out the name of Allah when all this happened. Just so happened, but I'm sure it's just a coincidence. chat. I'm sure it's just a terrible coincidence.
Asylum seeker from Islamic.
Yes. But you don't know, he was driving a car, and cars have a radicalizing effect.
eye-roll
on people,
inducing.
especially sometimes, there's so much traffic,
Yeah.
traffic laws. I mean, driving is radicalizing people.
And where did he buy the car? Who sold him the car? Because they got some
Car deal,
responsibility.
yeah.
You suggested Amazon before.
No, well, yeah.
Is he called the Mini Cooper killer?
And also, some knives also have a voice of their own. They have spirit of their own, voices talking to people, just animistic ways of being.
Yeah.
Right.
These people will do. The people who are supposedly in charge of European countries will do anything. They will literally crawl over broken glass in order to avoid calling it terrorism, to avoid talking about the fact that mass migration is a failure and needs to be reversed and they all need to go back. They will crawl over broken glass to not make these connections, to not notice anything, and to jail and fine and persecute those who do. They are so committed to this grand design of theirs that they will not tolerate any deviation whatsoever. They will not have these conversations. And a lot of them, I think, are still haunted by the spectre of World War II and of the Austrian painter. And they're so afraid that if they it's this false narrative that if we even dare utter a word about this, all of a sudden, within 15 minutes, we'll have jackbooted thugs on the streets doing Roman salutes. And that's just not how any of this works. That is not what is going to happen. If anything, people will feel free to finally discuss what has become a growing, festering problem, that mass migration has failed in Europe and in the United Kingdom. These people are not integrating into society, they're not bringing their best, and they have to go back. They have to go back. This is a massive failure. This invade the world, invite the world policy has failed. And it is costing innocent people their lives.
So what happened yesterday was that the driver was arrested immediately, and it was confirmed instantly by the police that he was an Afghan, and there was speculation about his identity and about stuff. So there are several rumors about his age. Some people say 24, others 27, others 30. I think it's safe to say somewhere in his 20s. Right, so let's see here the Verdi group. Let's see here.
Thought it would take longer, but Verdi has just released a rallying cry of unity against right-wing extremism. The callousness of these people, they really are completely deranged.
The Verdi group. Let's see here the Munich car attack. The media. They're talking about a car.
Yeah.
A car.
Car.
Because God forbid they call it what it is, which is a terrorist attack.
Suspected Munich car attack. There's nothing suspected about it. There's footage. People know that it happened, and it wasn't the car.
Yeah, we
The
know
car
what we're
was
dealing
driven.
with here.
Actually, you've got to give Sky News.
This is
credit.
Islamic
Children
terrorism.
30 injured as car driven into Munich crowd in suspected attack.
Yeah.
Implying a person was in control of the car and making those decisions. Yes. It's a good start for Sky
Obviously,
News.
the editor missed that bit.
Yeah, clearly, yeah.
Some of the headlines are good, but most of them are not. And they say Munich car attack latest. Suspect name. Then we have Munich car ramming that injured 36, investigated as Islamic extremism. At least 20
Which it
injured.
is.
Car convert to Islam. NBC News.
Yeah, and here DW, I think that's for Deutsche Welle. At
Yes,
least 20
Deutsche Welle.
injured after car drives into
State-run
crowded
media.
Munich.
The car was
self-driving
facing east when it came into.
Yeah.
itself.
Maybe it's one of Musk's self-driving Teslas.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they should ban cars just like they called to ban knives
Knives,
after
yeah.
the knives attacks. Yeah.
Or
Ignoring-
tweets. Or tweets.
Exactly. Yeah. Because there are people behind tweets. You know that.
Yeah.
Not behind cars and knives.
I hate this weakness.
Right. So we have now staged
This sort of weakness is
politicians making
provocative.
mistakes and
People see these sorts of reactions, and it's like, this is weak, limp-wristed shit. And it's only going to encourage more. When what is needed is a very strong response of, in an ideal world, the German government would be sending out troops to find every known asylum seeker, round them up, and get them out of here. To find the associates of this terrorist who committed this attack. Interrogate them. And if they are, especially if they are in the country illegally, deport them. But honestly, at this point, it's just like, find all of their known associates, find every asylum seeker, and just, at this point, they've got to go. Because this is just getting out of hand. Arsenio, welcome in. Why did my... Oh. I know why. I forgot to put in blurb redeems. I am sorry about that, Arsenio. Give me just a moment. This is a new stream theme here, so... I forgot about the blurbs. Where is my... Here you go, just testing it. Yeah, there's some things that I completely forget about. And blurbs is one of them. There we are. Okay. Channel points are enabled. Copy browser. And hang on a minute, we will get this. There it is. Now, let's get that centered horizontally. And... where's the quack? There it is. Beautiful. We are back in business. We are so back, boys. Levels are back that have not been seen in a long time. All right. Now that all of that is fixed. So there's the quackity quack. But anyways, how you doing, Asinia? I have to remember to put this on all of my screens. In fact, let me do that right now while I'm thinking about it. Put it there on the main screen. Lovely. There it is on starting soon. I wonder why. I'm good. How be yourself? Doing all right. Doing all right. Got a full day lined up here of yapping and some gourmet video reacts. I've got a brand new one from Sukiyaki Travel that I want to take a look at, and also got a luxury double-decker train in Japan. We're going on a train ride, chat, so you won't want to miss that. And then we're going to play Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, so don't miss it. I think maybe I just forgot to put blurb on the rest of the screens, but we fixed that now. Big eyes. Yes, we are really going the distance here. We're going on trains and then we're going to Hawaii. But the only place we're not going is Brazil. So I think now is the time to transition over to this attack that happened in Munich. Was going on around the same time as the security conference where Vice President J.D. Vance was scheduled to speak. There was concern at first and speculation is like, oh my gosh, the Vice President is there. Is he all right? Well, yes, of course he's all right. You know, some of the best security in the world. But this from Revolver News, Vance's Munich speech threw down the gauntlet and left EU leaders melting down. America's strength is back in full force. Vice President J.D. Vance strolled into the Munich Security Conference and let Europe have it with both barrels. His speech was fiery, unapologetically all-American, and left EU leaders grappling for words as they melted down in real time. Jack Posobiec tweeting out Vance just got up on stage in Munich and slammed the leaders of the EU, telling them the migrant card attacks like the one yesterday were the result of their own out-of-control immigration policies. It was glorious to watch, after years of weakness and acting like scared little cowards, actually seeing America finally flexing and calling out the globalist dirtbags destroying Europe was exactly what the world needed. The Columbia Bugle tweeting out Vance's Munich speech described the stakes and threw down the gauntlet. Mass immigration is the essential challenge of our time. Our shared Western civilization is at risk, and the first country to reverse mass immigration will lead the rest into the future. This was the moment for President Trump's administration to make its grand entrance into the world stage, and they rolled into Europe like a boss. And yes, Vance threw down the gauntlet, putting every European leader on notice. I mean, the Columbia Bugle is got it right there. First to start reversing mass immigration is going to be the leader in the European stage, and possibly one of the new leaders on the world stage. So much of what we see going on in Europe, what we've seen in America the past few years, past couple of decades really, and throughout much of the world has been what can only be termed as managed decline. This idea that things are just going to get worse, there's nothing we can do about it except to manage the decline and make it as slow and steady as possible. When really, decline is just a choice that's made. And there is an alternative choice of the opposite of decline, of growth, of prosperity, of security, and of a general feeling of safety and freedom. And yes, you can have both. It's a choice. So much of world leadership has said, we want managed decline. I've always suspected it's been just a general short-sightedness and selfishness of prosperity and growth are too hard, combined with we got ours, now piss off, and they're just also just a general indifference. It's like, you know, we don't care. We just want to rest on our laurels. While true leadership steps in and says, no, we're not resting on our laurels. We're going back to the moon. We are going to launch rockets and land on Mars. And we're going to colonize space. And we're also going to make our parts of the planet, at least, safer, prosperous, and more free. And we're not going to tolerate people coming into our countries and making trouble for the rest of us. Twilight, thank you for subscribing on YouTube. Thank you, thank you. Vance made it clear Europe and America are drifting apart. He's not wrong. They're heading straight into communist waters, whilst we're swimming in a sea of freedom, finally. Well, that remains to be seen. There's still a lot of work to be done. Time for them to reverse course and join us. I mean, in terms of the geopolitical poles, you've got three in the world. You've got the United States, with a lot of European and even the United Kingdom and certain Commonwealth countries being vassal states of the United States. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And then you've got Russia and you've got China, with a lot of the BRICS countries as their vassal states. For so long, it seems as though Europe was sort of shifting towards the Chinese pole. At least in, I guess, all of the bad ways. Not sure if there are many good ways. But, yeah. Now we've got someone issuing a clarion call of, hey, there's a better way than this sort of managed decline. And, I mean, I don't even know what you call it. Just sort of perversion by communists. I don't even know if it's necessarily gay race communism at this point. It's just straight up perversion. But, yeah, time for them to reverse course, and there's been a vibe shift, and now history and the culture appears to be against these forces of managed decline and wokeism that have prevailed for so many years now. Got a clip here from Vance's speech.
But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
They called out the globalist leaders for being manic little tyrants who have weaponized censorship and obliterated free speech. Because again, God forbid we should call out this terrorism that afflicted Munich for what it really is, as a product of Islamic extremism and a product of invade the world, invite the world foreign policy. He also highlighted the shameful case of a British man arrested for the so-called crime of praying outside an abortion clinic. That's actually up in Scotland. Where, yes, if you are near an abortion clinic, Scottish police could arrest you for thought crime if they suspect you even to be praying silently, you could get arrested. If you are praying quietly in your own home, your neighbors are encouraged to rat you out so that police can come in and arrest you. For praying, for exercising religious freedoms that have existed in Scotland and in the United Kingdom since the time of the Magna Carta. It's absolute madness. It is very dangerous to be a Christian in Scotland right now, or even in the United Kingdom in general, whether it's England or Wales or Northern Ireland or anywhere else. Lines like this are timeless. I wish I could say this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person, but no, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. And that's just it. It doesn't have to be this way, chat. It doesn't have to be this way. We can do better. We don't have to choose managed decline. We can choose growth. We can choose safety. We can choose prosperity. We can choose safe communities and high-trust societies. We can choose European countries that still look like European countries. We can choose quaint hamlets in England that still look like quaint hamlets in England, with native-born English people going about their business day to day. We can choose a Britannia that has proper British aesthetics, and not this UK, spelled Y-O-O-K-A-Y. Not those sorts of aesthetics that have been what can only be seen as a vandalization of UK aesthetics and culture. A vandalization and bastardization of what was once quintessentially English. And actually, there's a very good video about that from Sargon of Akkad. At least I think it was Sargon. It's not Sargon, it's Sargon. Where was it? Maybe it wasn't. Appreciate the lurky, Sinataki, making lunch. Totally understand it is around that time of day. Oh, hey, look who's live. Yeah, now that everything's diverging. A tale of two Britons bound to clash. May have to take a look at this.
Some big news that's done the rounds.
Anyways, Vance's speech, getting back to that, a sign that America is back with righteous vengeance. And for the people of Europe and the world who are being suffocating under this failed globalist rule, it's not just words in a speech, it is quite literally a lifeline. Charlie Kirk tweeting out J.D. Vance at the Munich Security Conference just to let all of Europe know they are officially on notice for terrorizing the free thoughts, speech, and even silent prayers of their citizens. America's clear moral leadership on the world stage is back.
And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have...
Yeah, the hateful content is... It's just that. It's anything that they don't like. It's anything that disagrees with the official narrative and dares to question those in power. That's all it is. So anytime you hear that chat, just flip that little switch in your mind and say, oh, they just don't like what these people are saying because it challenges those in authority. Got it.
Carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet.
Oh no, we can't have any of that now, can we? Bold of you to assume that these feminists, and be they male or female, need any sort of protecting. Isn't that a bit misogynist of you? I thought we were all about equal rights and about people standing up for themselves.
A day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder.
Yeah, they had that recently somewhere in the UK. Gentleman who burned the Quran got arrested. He's still in jail. Another man who tried to stab someone for trying to burn the Quran. He gets off. He's out roaming the streets. He's out on, I guess he's on bail. I don't know. It just shows you the upside-down, topsy-turvy clown world that we continue to live in. And it is just becoming absolutely insufferable, and the people are not, they're not going to stomach it. This cannot go on. This madness must end. And I think the only way that it really ends is either through the breakout of war. That's the worst possible outcome. Or we finally get leadership in European countries that say, you know what, we've tried this whole mass migration thing. We've tried invading the third world and then inviting them in. And it's just not working out. So, you know what? They have to go back. Put them on planes, put them on boats, put them on buses, put them on trains. Get them out of here. Just send them back. Because we've tried integration. They don't want to integrate. They just want to form their own little enclaves and create their own little power bases, their own corrupt power bases, where they will just vote in special favors for themselves and protect their own, and not giving a single thought to their adoptive countries, to the greater good. I fear that people will reach the breaking point but won't be able to stomach the punishment required to end this madness. Not saying violence, but rather jailing those responsible for allowing these terrible things to happen. Oh yes, that's the other thing. Nobody's really seen the inside of a prison cell for allowing these terrible things to happen. Nobody's been held to account. That's something that that's the one thing I really fear out of all of this, is that even if we win, the bad guys get off scot-free. They're never held to account. And no amount of public cursing and condemnation after the fact, and even long after they're gone, is enough. The people that did this to the Western world, they need to suffer consequences. They need to be inside prison cells. At the very least, that's what they need to do. They need to have all of their wealth, all of their assets, because a lot of those same people have profited tremendously off of all of this. All of that needs to be stripped from them. I mean, one of the biggest examples, Bill and Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. They had so many powerful people running cover for them in the American government, and even in other governments of the world. And they have gotten away with crimes of their century. If anyone deserved to be in a prison cell, it's Bill and especially Hillary Clinton. They are absolutely wicked, ghoulish people. The embodiment of the term ungodly. And yet they're still walking free. And laughing about it. More or less, yes. Yeah. But chat, there's an old saying, when you start taking a lot of flack, you know you're over the target. Vice President Vance gives this speech, and globalist leaders were absolutely losing their bloody minds over it, which only means that JD hit the nail on the head hard. Germany's defense minister, reacting to J.D. Vance's speech, calling it unacceptable.
This is why I cannot just ignore what we heard before. I cannot not comment on the speech we heard by the US Vice President. We fight for your right to be against us.
No, you don't.
That is the motto, one of the mottos of the Bundeswehr, and it stands for our democracy. This democracy that was just called into question by the US Vice President, and not just the German democracy, but Europe as a whole. He spoke of the annulment of democracy, and if I understood him correctly, he compares the condition of Europe with the condition that prevails in some authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. This is not the Europe, not the democracy where
That's
I live
four.
and where I conduct my election campaign right now. And this is not the democracy
That's
that
5.
I witness every day in our parliament. In our democracy, every
That's 6.
opinion has a voice. And it makes it possible
Except for right-wing opinions that you happen to disagree with and view as a threat to your power. Isn't that right, Minister?
for parties that are partly extremist, such as the AfD, and they can campaign just as any other party. This is democracy.
No, they can't. You're trying to destroy them. You're trying to get them burned. You're trying to get them forcibly dissolved and seize their assets. And then probably get a list of names of all the members and put them in jail or fine them into bankruptcy. Don't fucking gaslight us. Don't you fucking gaslight us, you tyrant. We know exactly what you're on about. Because you fear them. You fear that they could win. And they could disrupt your little rackets that you've got going on behind the scenes.
democracy.
That's 7.
And if the Vice President had the opportunity to switch on his TV set when he arrived yesterday,
Nobody watches television anymore. People stream things to their devices. If they want news, they can go to Twitter. I'm sorry, Europe, UK, you're behind the times. We're not turning on Deutsche Welle or the BBC and getting our news at 6 o'clock or whenever it is that the evening news is on. That's not how the world works anymore. You are behind the 8 ball here.
would have seen one of those candidates at primetime TV. By the way, we even admit media that spread Russian propaganda, and the representatives of the federal government answer their questions. Nobody is excluded.
Again, a lie, an attempt to gaslight, because pretty much every European country was complicit in the banning of RT and Russian state media. We know which side you chose in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, and it wasn't Russia.
But democracy does not mean
That's 8.
that a vociferous minority will automatically be right, and they cannot decide what truth is. It does not mean that anyone can say anything, and democracy must...
That's 9. And also, yeah, it's kind of fundamental to so-called democracy that people do have the freedom to say whatever they like. Okay, you can't keep putting on these exceptions and expecting to still call it free speech. Free speech includes the freedom to offend, the freedom to be an arsehole, the freedom to say things that make you uncomfortable. If you're not free to say things that make even the speaker who's saying the things uncomfortable, or that makes others uncomfortable, then you don't really have free speech. Free speech is not freedom of speech to say whatever gives everyone the warm fuzzies and doesn't offend anyone. That's not free speech. That's just speech control. That's tyranny. Free speech means a genuine marketplace of ideas where people can talk about the uncomfortable things and not have to fear reprisals.
Must be able to defend itself against extremists that try to destroy it. I am happy to live in Europe.
Yeah, let's talk about those extremists, Minister. The real extremists are the ones that are driving automobiles into crowds, be they Christkindl market goers or protesters. And who are those people, Minister? By and large, they happen to be migrants from the Middle East and from North Africa. Those are the real extremists. But you don't want to talk about those, do you? You don't want to talk about those. No, no, no. The real extremists in your eyes are the people that potentially threaten your power. The people on the so-called far right. The people in political parties like Alternative for Deutschland. Those are the real people that you considered extremists, when really they are just law-abiding, good-natured, hard-working German citizens who just want freedom and order and safety restored back to their country, and are tired of seeing their children and grandchildren's birthright given away to strangers who have no appreciation or concept for the land or for the culture, for the people or for the history. But hey, you see a cheap vote buying constituency in those migrants. And so you fall all over yourself to give them a pathway to citizenship. And any of your own big business constituencies, all they see is cheap labor. Because, hey, that's what it's always been about, right? People are interchangeable. Magic dirt theory. They get onto German land, and all of a sudden they start singing Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. Isn't that right, Minister? That's what you really think, or that's what you're trying to sell people on. Really, it's just about you, a tired old man, holding on to power, holding on to some warped, outdated view of the world. Because you just can't accept that the world has left you behind, and left you behind long ago.
Where this democracy is defended every day against its internal
That's
and
10.
external enemies. And therefore, I would like to explicitly contradict and oppose the impression that Vice President Vance suggested here, that our democracies oppress and silence minorities.
11.
We not only know against whom we defend our countries, but also what we defend it for. It's for democracy, for freedom
12.
of opinion, for the rule of law and the dignity of each and every one, ladies and gentlemen.
12 times in approximately 3 minutes that the German defense minister made references to democracy or our democracy, registered trademark. Three minutes of gaslighting, of effectively pissing on people's leg and telling them it's raining. The good news is that people of Britain saw this speech as a lifeline, even if they're ashamed it's come to this. They need the United States to help them, to save them even, as this powerful post shows. Free speech. I'm ashamed of Britain and how we must now look to the US to save us, because our cowardly politicians are too afraid of the globalists in control. Watch as J.D. Vance defends the British people, even as our governments won't, and then pray they can stop the madness.
I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person. But no, this last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
This is absolute madness. This is the height of insanity, chat. This cannot go on. This cannot be permitted to go on. There have been debates in certain circles about whether or not Britain needs a written constitution outlining the rights of individual citizens. After hearing of these examples from the Vice President, I'm going to say that perhaps we need to just duplicate the American model. Probably even duplicate the American Constitution and Bill of Rights, especially the Bill of Rights, word for word, and just leave it at that. Anything else would probably be overcomplicating it. Maybe for the better, yeah. Anything more than that would just be an overcomplication. And an attempt by powerful elites and interest groups to throw a spanner in the works and just render the whole thing without teeth. But this sort of thing cannot go on. And as effective as these stories may be in showcasing the plight of Christian martyrs even in the Western world, I would say to Christians, especially those in Scotland, continue to pray, in both in private and boldly and publicly, and in mass numbers too. What got this one fellow arrested was the fact that he was doing it alone. If large crowds of people show up and do that sort of thing, they can't arrest you all. They can't arrest all of you. Not only that, it would be an overwhelming show of force to the opposition. And the politicians and the police there in Scotland would just be absolutely rendered apoplectic. And those public displays of apoplexy, well, it would be a sign that they have lost control. And when you get emotional and flail about like that, you start to make mistakes. You start to make a lot of mistakes. Because you don't exactly make the best decisions when you're emotional like that. But they have revealed a thumbscrew, a button that can be pressed. Because apparently what Scottish police and the politicians fear the most is Christians coming together in prayer. So you know what? I think we need a lot more of that. If that's what they're so afraid of, then let us come together in prayer and fellowship. I can't speak for my fellow Scottish brethren, but I know this. I would look at that as a tremendous opportunity. A tremendous opportunity to create some good trouble. And all I would have to do is say an Our Father, or start out by bowing my head and closing my eyes and saying, Heavenly Father, we come to you in the name of Jesus. How pathetic if that is what they fear. Then again, every knee shall bow. Charlie Kirk's got the full speech from J.D. Vance. Beautiful bottom line is that J.D. Vance went to Germany and took a chainsaw to the heart of the EU deep state, and it was long overdue because what's happening here at home is happening 10 times worse in Europe. As it says, whenever America catches a cold, the rest of the world catches the flu. If we don't step in and speak some hard truth, that entire continent will be lost in the globalist abyss forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for future videos, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. You can also follow me on Twitter @LordRexworth for more updates and behind-the-scenes content. And if you want to support the channel, check out my Coffee or Throne pages. Links are in the description. Finally, be sure to visit LordRexworth.com and follow me across all platforms. That's LordRexworth.com. Until next time, I wish you all the best, and God bless.